In the last session, I modified the bow by tapering the end and extending the tenon through to the bottom face of the seat. Here I've highlighted that tapering area. We used the scale tool for that, and then the push-pull to extend the tenon right through the seat. In the process of making the bow, I also created the bow steam bending profile full-size template. In this session, I'll complete the Windsor chair by placing all the remaining spindles into proper position with respect to the bow. First, I'll delete a few things that we don't need anymore. And I need to rotate around, orbit around to the back corner of the chair. The first thing in positioning the new bows is to create the face or plane of rotation for the spindles. These reference faces are made by drawing small triangles along the sight lines as shown here. Make sure you're on the blue axis when you make the vertical line. Then pick the protractor tool and hover over one of the triangle faces and raise a guideline to intersect in the center of the bow. This will be the center line of that spindle. Repeat this process for each of the spindle locations. I also like to, although I didn't show it in this video, I like to put small segment lines along those center lines at each spindle location on the bow, within the bow component. That comes in handy later in drilling the bow, because you have the location then of the sockets through the bow. We can now do an inspection of the spindle alignment and its spacing. Orbit around for a front view. It looks real good. So I don't see any need for adjustment of spindles or sight lines. Now I can place copies of the spindle component. I'll pick the spindle here, bring it over to the chair. These components are on the blue axis. I'm going to turn on X-ray so I can see the point of matching up with the seat socket. There it is. And now I can just multiple copy the spindle over to the other socket locations in the seat. Again, all of these spindles now are aligned with the blue axis, and we need to rotate them into their position along those guidelines just placed earlier. To rotate these spindles into the bow, select the spindle, and pick the rotate tool. Hover over the triangle face and then hold the shift key. Click at the center of rotation, then click again at the end point of the center line. Rotate over to the guideline and click to stop the rotation. Looks okay. Now we can repeat this rotation process for each bow. Pick the rotate tool, hover on that triangle face, then drop down to the center of rotation, click on the center line endpoint and rotate over to the guideline and click again to end the rotation. The spindles, I only have one spindle component in this model, so it's one length, the full length, and obviously they're too long in most of the cases, and we can shorten them later very quickly. But that means we'll end up with more than one component for spindles. There'll be multiple components. Okay, the last spindle, select, pick rotate tool, hover over the triangle, hold the shift key, click on the center of rotation right at the seat socket, click on the end of the center line and bring it over to the guideline. Click again. Now we can shut off X-ray, have a look. Everything seems to be in position properly. We can now delete the guidelines and the triangles. Again, I've got only one spindle component, full length, for all locations, and this creates some excessively long spindles. We can make additional spindle lengths by using the scale tool. Select a spindle. Oh wait, I forgot. I can't. If I change that one spindle, I change all the spindles. So I've got to make unique. Click on the spindle, make unique, then edit the component. Then select down through the taper area at the top of the spindle. They're tapered down to 3/8 at the top. Pick the scale tool and grab the handles that are right in the center and just scoot down. You want about an inch above the bow for cutoff, and these will be wedged in the spindle as well. So we can repeat that same process, make unique, edit, select down through the taper area, pick the scale tool, and draw down to about an inch above the bow. That leaves a little extra that'll be handy and can be sawn off after gluing. The center lines are now still too long. The center lines didn't get scaled because my selection here is only part of the spindle, not all the way down, capturing the center line, so it doesn't get scaled. So you could certainly trim those lines. That looks better. Now we can make a complete chair by copying the half and flipping and reconnecting precisely at the center. So all the components are selected except for the center spindle and the medials. The medial stretcher. Now I'll bring the copy over on the red axis, flip along the red axis, and bring it back. One more thing needs to be checked. The actual as-built angles for the spindles. I suspect that my model here, they may be a degree or so off from those specified in the magazine article. It's taken about 8 blogs or 16 weeks to demonstrate SketchUp for the Windsor Bowback. That represents about 160 minutes of video, less than 3 hours. So about 3 hours work in SketchUp gets you the model, but there is still important work in creating the dimension scenes that result in shop drawings and full-size templates.